this little button, and be very happy to introduce you today, Mr. Joseph Abdella, and he is now 94 years old, and we are at his home in Oxford, Massachusetts. Today is September 22nd, 2017, and my name is Susan Tracy, and I'm doing the recording here for the Veterans Oral History Project. And I hope the camera can pick up the wonderful Marine Corps hat with the Distinguished Flying Cross on the top. Tilt your head down a little bit, make sure we get that on that camera with your 5 stars up above it. That's very special. It's a wonderful hat. So I will turn the story over to Mr. Abdella, and he'll take us back to Utica, New York, and Worcester, Massachusetts, and the United States Marine Corps.
My name is Joseph Abdella. I was born in Utica, New York on June 16, 1923, but I never lived in Utica. I came right back to Worcester where my siblings and father were.
Because your grandparents were there, your mother's
My
parents
grandparents were in Utica, New York. Yeah. That's why my mother went there for my birth. But I never lived in Utica. I was educated in the Worcester school system, graduated on my 18th birthday on June 16, 1941 from North High School. And then World War II broke out in December 7th of 41 when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor. My older brothers, one went into the 181st National Guard in the Army, and my other brother Albert went into the Marine Corps.
Was that same year?
All in the same year.
Right after Pearl Harbor?
Right after Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
And I tried to join because 3 friends of mine left together, and they would not allow me to go on account of my brothers being gone. But by come October, my mother relented and allowed me to join the Marine Corps in 1942.
Oh my.
In October 10th, I went to Paris Island, went through boot camp there, and I'm proud to say I was the only one in my platoon to fire expert rifleman, even though I never fired a rifle in my life.
Oh gosh.
But
now, had you heard from your brother? Did you know what boot camp was going to be like?
No, I never heard from
he didn't tell you all the
about
secrets?
boot camp. It was all a pleasant surprise.
A pleasant surprise.
We survived it. I had a very tough but fair DI. Nice Southern gentleman. He was good to us, but he was fair.
Fair.
And,
even to a Northern Yankee.
But because I had just graduated from high school, I got high marks on the aptitude test. And I was entitled to go to Marine Air. And I was sent to Cherry Point, North Carolina. The rest of the platoon was sent to FMF down in North Carolina, Fleet Marine Force. They were the grunts. Thank God I never had to carry a rifle. But I went from Cherry Point to Newport, Rhode Island, electrical school, basic electricity. Then I graduated from there and went to Chicago, Illinois, 87th and Anthony, which was the Advanced Aviation Electrical School.
In Chicago? Why was it in Chicago?
I have no idea.
Oh, there must have been
that's where they had the
aircraft companies out there, production and...
We were in that old trade school.
Trade school.
They converted it into a school for aviation, and I was got my advanced aviation electricity degree there. And after that, I joined the squadron and became the first member of the VMSB 142 at Cherry Point, El Toro, in El Toro, California, which was in Santa Ana. And I stayed the electrician in that outfit, became one of them. And I got to like flying so much, by the time we got to Hawaii, I was bored with just being an electrician. I wanted some action, so I asked our skipper, Major Bar if he needed a gunner. And he said yes, and he sent me to gunnery school up at Barbers Point on Oahu, which was stationed next to Ever, which was the Marine Air Station. I got my diploma on July 17th, 1944 as a gunner. And I was assigned to Herb Mulkey, who was my pilot. We went into combat from Hawaii. Our first combat base was Emaru in the Admiralty Islands. From there we bombed the two naval air stations at Kavieng and Rabaul, which were two of the largest in the South Pacific, and we met opposition every day we went in. We never flew every day, we flew every other day. Half of us flew A, half of us flew B. So we flew every other day, and we stayed there for several months until they got the fleet going. They got a task force going to attack the Philippines, and we were in the task force on a baby carrier. We were in on the invasion of Mindanao on D-Day. We took off from the carrier, made our first bombing run, and landed in a rice paddy that was converted by the Seabees. By the time we got ready, they had their landing base ready. We landed there and made a couple of more runs that day. Then we went back to our regular routine, flying A and B, one day on, one day off.
From that base.
From that base, and it was a rice paddy. And there is one thing I will say. We had an electrician buddy of mine, Wilford Roy, that came from Holyoke, and his father was a CB in that paddy next door. So that was the strangest thing that
Now,
ever
how
happened.
did you find that out?
He met his father the second day we were there.
His father.
He knew he was in the CBs, and come to find out it was. And we got all kinds of gifts from the CBs because his father was there.
Oh, what kind of gifts would you get from them?
We got food. Good food.
Food.
We got, instead of sea rations, we got good food from the CBs.
The CBs had the food, huh?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Now that, you said the rice paddy, was this still a rice paddy full of water and
No,
mud?
it was
Or
dried out. It was dried out.
How did they make the landing
they-
strip?
They just knocked down the edges. They had shrubs on there on the edges. Knocked the shrubs down and flattened it out and made three rice paddies, one landing strip. And the SBD was small enough to land on that strip.
And was there a surface they put down somehow?
No, they didn't. They just flattened it out
Just flattened it
with
out?
the bulldozers.
And it was
Just a
dry
dirt
enough
strip.
to
A dirt strip, and we just landed on it. They were dried out because evidently the Japanese didn't allow the Philippines to grow any rice
Oh.
in that area.
Oh.
So we did our operations from that base in Mindanao for several months. Then we went to Leyte. From Leyte we went to Mindoro. From Mindoro we went to Zamboanga, where the monkeys have no tails. And we got ourselves a monkey for our tent who was the best god ever. And I have a picture of it, and I call it my first offspring.
Now, how did you get the monkey?
It was given to us by one of the Filipinos.
Here, have a monkey.
No, we just got a nice little monkey.
A monkey.
But he was our god. He wouldn't allow any of the natives into the tents.
That's really
He didn't mind the GIs, but he would not allow the Filipino natives into the tents. He was the best god we ever had.
And was he did he have a good disposition?
He
with
did
you
have a
guys?
good disposition. I have pictures of him on my shoulder. And no, he was good to us.
Yeah.
And we had to leave him there.
I was going to say, what happened when you had to leave?
Well, I left. I was in sick bay the day our relief came in. They brought in 20 pilots and 20 gunners, where we had 48 of each. So we had to cut cards to come home. And they came up and let me cut the card, and I cut the 10 of diamonds, which allowed me to come home with the first group. I was in with tonsillitis, which bugged me all the way through the Marine Corps.
Ooh.
As a matter of fact, I was in sick bay on VJ Day with tonsillitis. And they made an appointment to have my tonsils removed October 19th, and lo and behold, October 19th was the day I was qualified to be discharged from the Marine Corps. And they asked me, "You going to stay and have your tonsils out?" I says, "No way in hell. I'm going home." And 3 or 4 months later, I paid to have my own tonsils removed. They were that bad.
But you were at home.
But I was home. Yeah. I did.
Whoa.
We.
So throughout the Marine Corps, you'd keep getting these horrible sore throats?
Yes, I did. Yes. Matter of fact, I went down to visit my brother Johnny. The furthest he ever got in the war was Virginia Beach. Abby, my next older brother, who was the Marine, got wounded on the second day of the invasion of Guadalcanal. He got a head wound and ended up with a plate in his head. He had a tough life. All of us, well, my brothers had short lives. My brother Johnny died at the age 57 from a bad heart. My father died at age 67 from a bad heart. My brother Abby had a Gillian's beret when he was in his 70s. Then at age 80 he got a stroke and lived 7 years with that stroke. But it never stopped him from going to the casinos and shooting craps. He was a craps man. So am I. I go to the casino, I only shoot craps. But I grew up in Worcester, like I say, and I graduated from North High School in '41. I met my wife Louise after I got out of the Marine Corps sometime in November of '45. And we got married in 1947. We've now been married 70 years.
It's very
May
special.
3rd.
Very special.
We have 3 children. Elaine's the oldest, Patty's next, and Thomas is the youngest. We have 5 grandchildren, and we lost one at the age of 17 in a horrific auto accident that hydroplaned on a slippery road on Route 95 in Providence, and we lost our handsome grandson who was 17 and sleeping in the back seat. But we now have 4 grandchildren, 8 great-grandchildren, 4 boys and 4 girls. And I'm proud to say the oldest is now attending the West Texas College in Texas.
Whoa, it's a long way.
Our oldest great-grandchild. Very proud of him, very smart.
Now, did any of all of that group go into the service?
No, none of my family ever went into the service. My son did sign up for the Vietnam draft, but he was never called, and I was happy for that. But he would have gone had he been called, but he would have joined the Air Force or the Navy. He wouldn't have gone in the Marines.
Wouldn't have gone in the Marines,
Would not have gone in the Marines. And
why do you think he wouldn't have gone in the Marines?
I wouldn't have allowed it.
You wouldn't have
Well,
allowed it?
I say the Navy or the Air Force, he would have learned the trade.
Yeah.
I learned the trade in the Marine Corps. I come out as an electrician also, as a gunner, but also an electrician. And I had a chance to use that to go to work for the electric light company, but I deferred it because at the time you started off by shoveling coal up on Webster Street in Worcester. And everybody said, "You don't want to do that," so I refused it, and I ended up working in a wire mill and driving cab for the next rest of my life practically. I worked in the wire mill for 28 years at Thompson Wire, and I'm still receiving a pension from them for over 30 years. And then I went to driving cab right after they closed the mill down. My brother owned 5 cabs, so I went to drive for him. The next day I could drive. But previous to that, I had owned a cab in 1946. I bought a cab, a Central cab. So I knew the business. And after I retired from Thomson Wire, I drove cab part-time till I was 80 years old.
That's great.
And the only reason I quit was I started to go blind. Then I did go for surgery. Went for surgery and became totally blind in my right eye. So I'm not able to drive, and none of us drive now. Louise is too nervous to drive, and I don't blame her with the way things are.
Yep, it's changed a lot. Now, you were telling me before we turned on the tape that you started driving pretty early, because you had a lovely story about
Yes.
you and your dad when you were 15.
Hurricane of 1938, I was 15 years old, driving my father's truck. We pedaled.
Was that the first year you started driving?
No,
when
I
you
was
were
driving from 13.
At 13, you were driving your father's
I started at 13,
truck.
he put it in low gear and let it go down the street. And in those days, low gear was low gear. But I started driving from 13. But at age 15, in 1938, we were peddling fruit up on Providence Street in Worcester, and the wind started blowing, howling, knocking down branches, and I suggested to my father we go home, and he agreed. We got down to Grafton Street next to Franklin, and it was flooded, so in order to get out, I got up on the sidewalk under the bridge, and we cleared the water. We just made it and got into Washington Square and drove home to Mulberry Street, put the car away, the truck away, and I saw the church tower from Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, which is next door. I saw that come down. I saw the tower from St. Anne's Church up on Gage Street come down. Eastern Ave and Gage come down. And after the hurricane blew, I went down to Shrewsbury Street, saw all the pane glass windows from the Buick Company blown in. It was horrific.
Wow.
We never knew what a hurricane was.
It's interesting. It's interesting that, well, Worcester, you're inland, but
we got the wind that day.
that was the
That was
big
a horrific
lesson
day,
that,
yes.
on that hurricane. 38.
There was more damage done than ever.
Yeah.
I think
That's a
the
legendary
the
story.
next worst thing to that we got in Worcester was the tornado of '53. We were living on Kingsbury Street in Worcester, but Louise, my wife's brother and sister, were living at Graybrook Valley, which was a veterans project, and I drove right down there after the hurricane, and we were called to go down there, and I found them in the house. All the windows were blown out. Kids had glass all over in their hair and their clothing, and I picked them all up and brought them to our house, and they stayed with us for a couple of months till they moved to the Cape.
Whoa.
But they stayed with us on Kingsbury Street. We managed their children and our children in 6 rooms.
Wow.
And
Now, why was he in a veterans?
he was in the Army. He was in the Army during World War II, and he spent all his time up in the Aleutians, coldest place in the world to be. And my sister-in-law, her husband was in the Army, but he wasn't in World War II. He was in the Korean War.
Speaking of cold.
Yeah, and he became a prisoner of war and died in a prisoner of war camp. So she was left a widow with 1 baby. But we have history. After the war, after World War II, they got all of my grandmother's grandchildren together. 17 of us all came back unhurt.
Whoa.
None of us were hurt.
That's amazing.
She had 17 grandchildren in World War II. All the males went, and one cousin of mine joined the Marines.
The woman, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Good for her. And was your brother, the Guadalcanal brother, the one who was most severely hurt?
He was. He was the only one that got a medical discharge.
Yeah.
Other than my brother Johnny. He crashed a Jeep on Virginia Beach and got a medical discharge. They both come out with medical discharges.
Now, where were you in this process when you learned about your brother in Guadalcanal? Were you
I was in
in
boot
the-
camp.
You were in boot camp.
I was in boot camp.
And how did you find out that
I got a letter from my family
letter?
telling us that Abbey was, his name is Albert, but everybody calls him Abbey. He's the original Abbey. Got wounded at Guadalcanal. And I met him. He went from South Pacific to Oakland Naval Hospital. And at that time I was at school in Chicago, and he was coming through, going to Quincy Naval Hospital from Oakland, and we met in Chicago. I was going to school there that time, and he stopped over, we met, and he was going to, I hadn't even gone into combat yet, and he was all done with his.
Yeah.
Then I started my combat. And like I say, when we were in Hawaii, and I could not sit back and watch everybody else doing all the action. I could not stay back at the base.
Especially with
That's
your
why
brother, I would think.
That's why I volunteered to become a gunner. And I did. I wanted to get into the action, and I did. I saw all of it. And I'm proud to say that I didn't know it, but by flying those 56 combat missions, I was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross with 1 gold medal, and that allowed me to have my name in the Marine Corps Book of Heroes, which I'm most proud of.
Absolutely.
And my family is proud of it.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to have done it.
That's right. You know, talking to Marines, anyone who is at Guadalcanal is, even among Marines, a very special Marine.
To me, they're the strongest.
Yeah.
That was the strongest combat force I ever knew. Because when my brother passed, his wife wanted to give me some 1st Marine Division, which was the first that had attacked Guadalcanal. She wanted me to give me some of his mementos. I said, I don't deserve them. He's the one that earned them. I'm not worthy of those mementos.
Well, I think you're keeping up with them now with those 56 missions. But
That's-
were
I didn't know I
early on, did Marines know how special that Guadalcanal campaign was?
No,
So
that was the first camp. That was the
yeah.
first campaign
Right.
against the Japanese.
That's right.
And I'm gonna diverse a little bit. I had a neighbor next door to me here, Bill Fike, was in that Navy force that landed the men at
The
Guadalcanal.
legendary Navy force.
And that legendary force, the first night, had to leave Guadalcanal because the Japanese were sending a fleet down to attack. And his cruiser got sunk. And that gentleman spent 14 hours in the water before he was rescued. Unbelievable that they were not attacked by sharks.
That's right.
But he did survive after spending, now there's a hero for you.
Yeah.
Spending 14 hours in the water. But he's not with us now. He's in a nursing home. He has dementia. And he's a year younger than me, and he kept calling me the young fella.
The young fella. Yeah.
But I've lived in Oxford for 56 years, and I was a coach in Little League when my son started playing. Then I followed him up, and I was a manager up in Babe Ruth League. And then I did play Jack Benny ball, and I have a story there in Jack Benny ball. The first night I went up to play softball at the Jack Benny League, this fella approached me and pointed a finger at me. He says, "Your name is Joe Abdella." And he says, "And who are you?" He says, "I'm Sam Carey from Newport, Rhode Island." Lo and behold, we were in the same electrical class at Newport, Rhode Island.
And he recognized you?
He recognized, and hadn't seen him in over 30 years.
Oh, gosh.
He recognized me because we met when we were at Newport. We did go out in Liberty together. Because he was from Oxford and I was from Worcester.
Yeah.
We're the closest neighbors. but I did, and in my life I was a member of the Knights of Columbus in Auburn, a member of the Oxford VFW, a life member of the Oxford VFW, and a life member of the Marine Corps League of Worcester, and a life member of the DAV.
Now, have you felt, is honored the right word, not just recognized, but do you have a sense that
I'm
the
proud.
other Marines know what your experience was like in those little dive bombers? I mean,
Yeah, they would not exchange places with me, and neither would I exchange places with them. I'll give you a little story. When I was leaving wherever, and I was leaving the base going to go take the train on to Oahu, there was an anti-aircraft battery right outside the gate, and a friend of mine, Vinny Di Toronto, who was my age, from Worcester, we knew each other quite well. We met and he says, "Joe, could you give me a flight, let me fly, take a flight in your plane?" I said, "Sure, Vinny." So I come back and I made arrangements. I asked my pilot, Herb Mulkey, I says, "Would you give my friend he won't touch anything, just let him fly?" He said, "Sure." So I put we're about the same size, so I put my flight gear on him. He got to the wing of the plane, he quit. "I'm not going up in that thing," he said.
I'll take my rifle and go through a race.
So I had to undress him, put my flight gear on, and get in the plane and finish the flight, do the flight. That's just it. They wouldn't do what I wanted to do, and I wouldn't trade places with them.
Now, how did you ever get the idea in your head to be a gunner on a...
I was bored being an electrician.
Just for being bored.
Right. Everybody else going out flying. I loved flying. I had never flown until I got to El Toro. And I was there a day before the rest of the squadron come, and I had nothing to do. And there was a TBF squadron next door, a torpedo bomber squadron.
Torpedo bomber.
Yeah. And so I went over and asked, could I take a flight? So I sat in the radio gunner's seat in the belly of the plane. That was the first flight I ever flew in my life, and I loved it. And I crawled up into the turret. I was small enough to fit in that turret. So the pilot says, "Don't touch anything, you can stay there." He said, "I know you're there." He could tell I was there, so. But I loved flying, and anytime I worked on one of the planes, on the SBDs,
SBD is?
Scout Bomber Douglas.
Scout Bomber Douglas.
By Douglas, right. Anytime I worked on the SBD, we had to go up and test it to make sure it was all right. So I got flight time, but I loved flying. It wasn't the money, just loved flying. That's why I transferred into gunnery when I got to Hawaii. I was bored with just staying back at the base, doing nothing while they went out and saw all the action.
Now, what kind of training did you have to be a gunner? What kinds of things did you have to learn?
First of all, we had to learn the Morse code.
Morse code.
Yeah. Then we had to learn the flags. They had flag signals. And we had to learn to fire the twin 30s.
You had to learn to fly them.
Fire them.
Fire the
Yeah,
guns.
we had twin 30s in the SBD.
130s is the gun.
Yeah. And they give us tests on different things. The Morse code of all things they gave us. We had to pass a test for that too.
Now, why Morse code? How?
That's all they had. Radios weren't long enough.
I've been thinking, so your little plane has a pilot and has you.
And we had radar and Morse code.
You had radar.
Radio and Morse code. But when you go out so far, you're get out of radio range, but you're within Morse code range.
And
in case
you're
anything happened.
using it as well as the pilot?
You're the only one that uses the Morse code.
You're the only one.
Yeah.
And what would you be getting? What information would you be getting on Morse code?
Well, if
different than what your pilot would get.
If somebody was stuck,
hit this button, and you want to get your phone? Or?
please.
Okay. So we're back to the question about
Morse code was broader than radio.
Yep.
So if you were far enough away, and if somebody was in trouble with Morse, and they'd be sending over the Morse code line, and they'd give you their position, so if you were in the area.
Oh, like to rescue.
Yes, yes. Or if you needed help.
Or you needed
if
help.
you were going to crash,
Mm-hmm.
you'd send SOS on it. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. One day, this PT boat, which John Kennedy drove, got stuck. It broke down, and there's different recognition signals every day.
Yeah, I was wondering about how do you know friendly?
Well, every day there's a different recognition signal. So you challenge them, and if they don't have the right answer, you attack them. So this PT boat got stuck. Next day, it didn't have the right. So the planes fired at it. Thank God they missed, till they recognized it was an American boat. So they asked us if we would volunteer to go a night trip on the PT boat. And I was one of the ones that said, I go. My pilot said he'll go too. So we took a night trip on a PT boat, and I was able to fire the .50 caliber machine gun, because we were on the river, went up the river right by the Japs. We saw the trucks, and we attacked them. I had a one night's ride on a PT boat. It wasn't the most comfortable thing in the world. No, it's very small.
Compared to your plane?
No, but you were running around. You know, you were mobile. Like in a plane, you were sitting down. But in a PT boat, you're running around. But it was confined.
Yep.
And they put 2 extra guys on, made it that much closer. But I did enjoy that ride. But we spent the whole night. We did experience our PT boat driver was, or person was.
Get to understand what it was like
exactly.
down there.
Their kind of life.
Right. Now, what kind of identification would you have every day? Would they be words?
Words.
Would they be
there would be
questions?
words. There would be
Do you
words.
Remember some examples?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
The pilot did that.
Uh,
We didn't know.
yeah.
The pilots knew them.
Yeah.
They were the ones that had challenged the opposite, whoever was out there
Right. Yeah.
by radio, and they, if they got the wrong answer, they got
just
attacked.
attack.
Yeah.
So in terms of rules of engagement, were you supposed to be limited to the specific mission, or if a target of opportunity came up, could you attack something different?
Yes.
How did you know how
By
to
radio.
do that, and who?
They always had a target A and target B. Like the day we went out in the attack with the 1,000-pound bomb.
Yeah.
Target A was closed in. Target B was closed in.
Yeah.
So we came back to base, and on the way home, everybody released their bombs.
Yeah.
Our bomb would not release. That's why we were stuck with. But we were the last ones to land. Everybody else landed and get out of the way, and we came down and.
Because everybody knew by then you had
We
a
had the bomb.
1,000-pound bomb, and you were
Right.
going to land a
We
plane.
were going to land the plane.
Yeah.
And to this day, I think it was pilot error. Because when you land normally, you got so many RPMs with the plane. But I don't think he allows for the extra 1,000 pounds to land with. That's why we crash landed.
You crash landed.
And
So you just to make this clear for the tape, you're up in the air and you can't hit your 2 targets, and the bomb would not release.
Right.
So the pilot calls ahead to the base and says, "We're coming in with a live bomb."
Right.
But normally you could always safely land the plane with your 1,000-pound bomb still intact.
We'd never done it.
Never
We had
done
never
it.
done it.
Haven't even practiced that.
No,
Right?
no.
Right, but potentially,
that's why.
could you have done that safely?
Yes, had he allowed enough
Right.
power
If you
to
had
land the
crash
plane.
landed, it would have been
Would have been
a
all right.
non-event,
Right.
sort of.
Right.
Okay, so then talk more about, describe this more about what happened and how that all
Well,
worked. That was an
when we
awful
got into
moment
our
for you.
final approach and straightened out, is when the engine cut out, didn't have enough power, and so we hit the ground, and the landing gear came right up through the wings, and we slid down the runway right on top of that bomb. Even though it was a dirt runway, nobody could understand any of the bomb personnel could not understand why friction didn't detonate that bomb.
Right.
But I tell you, when that plane stopped, my pilot was 6'3" and I beat him to the jungle.
I bet. Yeah.
And they didn't let us stay. Right after they dug us back out from the jungle, they had another plane running. We got in that plane and took off again just so we wouldn't freeze.
Really, they did that on purpose?
Yes.
Get back on the
Right.
horse?
Right.
That's interesting. You think that was standard operating procedure?
Yes, it was.
Did you
It was.
did you see that with other instances? So you knew that was
Yeah, we
part
knew
of
that
it?
happened.
Well,
If
that's
people had problems, they'd send them right back up again,
Oh.
just to fly around and land.
That's interesting.
And we did perfect landing on our way back. We had no problem because we had no extra 1,000 pounds. To this day, that's my contention,
Right.
that it was pilot error that caused that crash landing, because he didn't allow for that extra 1,000 pounds of weight.
Did he ever talk about that?
No.
Did the two of you ever talk about
No.
what that felt
No.
like?
No.
Because you
All I
always
know is-
flew together, right?
Yes.
You had a pretty close
All I
relationship.
know is I beat him to the jungle.
Yeah. Oh my. Yeah,
That was the hairiest day of my life.
I would imagine.
Had that bomb gone off, we'd have wiped out all the planes that were in the area.
1,000-pound bomb.
Yeah, it's a big bomb.
That's the biggest one you carried, right?
That's the biggest one we carried.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when you'd go on a mission, you'd have explain what
Well, I'll tell you,
you'd carry.
we went on
Which
one
kind of
mission.
bombs?
We carried 2 500-pound bombs.
500s.
Those went on the wings. So we, this one day we were going after a bridge in the Philippines, and I had a camera, a Kodak camera. So I opened it up, and we were the first one down, and he hit the bridge. And I snapped the picture. I says, "Herb, I got a picture of the bridge. You hit it." Look at the camera. I forgot to take the lens cover off.
Sure, this one's open.
But the pilot behind us, they had a camera in the wing taking a picture of it and hitting it.
Now, this was a Kodak camera that you were
My own personal
supposed to
camera.
have or not
No,
supposed to have?
my own personal camera.
Uh-huh.
Because we had a photographer, and he had his own setup. He used to print all the pictures for us.
You mean the Marine Corps photographer?
Yeah, a squadron photographer.
Squadron photographer.
Yeah, a squadron photographer.
And how would that work? Would he be on his own plane just taking pictures?
Yeah, yeah. And he'd take pictures on the ground, and But he had his own dark room and everything.
Whoa.
He was able to print the pictures.
Did you ever run into a Marine Corps historian, for lack of a better word? Would you have anything like an after-action report? So a Marine Corps official would be interviewing you on a particular mission or any
Well,
connection with Marine Corps
almost
history?
every mission that we went on, we were opposed by either ground, air, or sea. Always had opposition. On Rabaul, we had what we called Tail Gun Charlie. They had a Japanese 40 millimeter. He'd wait till the last plane come down before he'd come out of the cave and try to shoot it down, because he didn't want to give away his position.
Oh. Yeah.
See, had he come out earlier, one of
The rest of you guys would know
would
it.
see it, right?
Know where to
He'd
hit.
always wait till Tail Gun Charlie come down and he'd try and shoot the last plane down. That's why nobody wanted to be Tail Gun Charlie.
Yeah.
And we never were. My pilot was a division leader. He was the leader of the division, so we
Huh.
were the first ones on.
Huh. Now, how was that all determined? So you told me that on any particular mission, there might be, what you said, between 12 and 20
to
planes.
18, 24.
And how would
Well,
who would,
the
who would
senior
be-
man would lead the division.
Yeah.
And then each a senior pilot would lead the section. Section is 3 planes. So we go, if the skipper was first, he'd go first, the first 3, and then we'd go to the next 3. We'd be the first one, then the second group.
Yeah.
We would never take it.
And that was safer. You wouldn't want to. I'm assuming you wouldn't want to be on the edges.
No,
'cause
you
then you're
wouldn't.
more
You wouldn't want to be
vulnerable.
a child, right? We were only attacked one time by Japanese flights in the Philippines, and we had a choice: face the Japanese or go into a thunderhead. We flew into the thunderhead, and I had never seen such vicious air in my life. You'd lose 1,000 feet in a split second. And 6 of us went into that thunderhead to avoid the Japs. And we came out of it, nobody around. None of us got connected when we come out of that thunderhead. So my pilot navigated us back to the base. Everybody navigated back safely. So your pilot had to be a navigator,
I was going to say, how would you not
or they were navigators.
bump into each other in a thing?
What happened then, I don't know. It was so violent that the storm, that we got separated. And nobody come out within sight of each other.
Interesting.
But my pilot, we all came back, all 6 of us came back that day.
Was that the worst weather experience you had?
The worst weather experience, yeah. But we've had Japanese fighters, and then we had some P-51s come and save our necks for us.
Really?
Oh yeah. But what we do, we form together this 3 or 6 planes, and you concentrate the gunners would concentrate their fire. So if you had 12 planes, you had 24 guns all concentrating on whichever plane came after you. So we had a lot of firepower. And we're slow but deadly.
Oh, but deadly. And how would you know how to coordinate all that firing? Is that something you'd learn in school?
No, that's just natural. You learn that flying. We shoot at targets. We shoot at targets while we were practicing. In Hawaii, we practice on targets.
In the air.
In the air,
Moving.
yes.
So you're moving and the target's moving.
Right, right. When we all had separate colored ammunition. The ammunition was painted different colors, so they'd know who got the most hits on the targets.
And this target, is the target hanging from a plane?
He was dragging it, yes.
And how did he know you guys weren't going to miss the target and hit
Oh,
him?
well, there was a long line. There was 100-yard line
That's a big
behind him.
long.
No,
Yeah.
100-yard line behind him.
Yeah. Huh. Is there some special technique? Because your plane's moving and the target's moving? How do you
If you're moving faster than the target, you'd lag the target. In other words, if he's going faster, you shoot in front of it. If he was going slower, you shoot behind it to hit it. So you'd lag or lead, all depending on the speed. That's the same with target practice. You'd always lead the targets to hit them. We shot clay pigeons, so that's how we learned how to shoot. We practiced shooting with the clay pigeons. We were on a cruise. Louise and I went on a cruise, and they were shooting targets off the fantail. And I went down and I
knew
shot.
how to do that. Yeah.
I went down and I shot clay pigeons off the fantail.
I played cards.
No, you lead or you lag the target, depending on the speed. If you was going faster, you had to lead it. If it was going slower, you lagged it.
And would there be a lot of coming together after the mission was over, would you all hang around?
Had a meeting. Always had a meeting.
Always had after action
Yeah,
meeting.
we had a meeting.
And
yeah.
you talk about what kinds
What
of
have
things.
happened, right? And in the Philippines, most of our work was ground air support with the Army.
Ground air support to the Army. Mm-hmm.
And my very best friend was in the Philippines. And I found out we were doing ground support with his outfit. So he was right above Manila. Manila was an open city. There was no bombing in Manila by either side. So I got a flight down from where I was to Manila. And I tried to go up into the hills to meet my buddy Frank. I got within 200 yards of the line when the Japanese started a counterattack. So I just turned my little butt around and went back down to Manila and spent the rest of the day there.
Mm-hmm.
Got away from the
Whoa.
jungles.
Now,
And I tried to meet my buddy.
How would you keep track of Frank? And how did you?
By letter.
Where did you become friends?
Oh, from home. We grew
Home.
up together.
Oh.
He was
Oh.
my first landlord. We got married. Louise and I got married. We had nothing. We got home from our honeymoon. I think we spent the last $2
Oh.
we had on a cab to go from Union Station to Mulberry Street. But Frank had a 2-tenement house on Eastern Ave, and he evicted the tenants to give us the apartment.
Oh my.
That was our first apartment. Because before that, we stayed with my mother. A couple of months. But Frank evicted the tenants to give us our apartment. We grew up together, Frank and I.
And he was Marine Corps also.
No, he was
No?
Army.
Army.
He was Army.
Mhm.
No, the Marines, my 3 buddies in the Marines were P.E., Hut, and Mike. They all went in. They went to boot camp together and got separated.
Oh yeah.
Once they got out of boot camp, they never met each other again during the war.
Yeah. Yeah.
They went separate ways.
And they all came home.
They all came home. Except Mike, he stayed in California. His name was Bastati.
Vistadi.
Bastati.
Bistadi.
Bastati. So he went to the judge to change, he went to court to change his name. And the judge says, why would you want to change a fine Italian name like that? So Mike says, how would you like to be called Bastard with an I?
Oh yes.
That's just what they called him.
Yeah.
In their eyes, his friends, so-called comrades.
What was your nickname?
Abby.
Abby.
I had it on my flight gear, my May West, Abby.
Yeah.
All my kids were Abbies.
Yeah.
My brother had the fruit store, it was Abby's.
Yeah. So the family business was the fruit store?
We were on the fruit business.
Yep.
My father had it
Yeah.
with the truck, my brother went into it.
Wow.
He had a store on Grafton Street when I came out of the Marine Corps. He called it the Guadalcanal.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Then he built one up on Park Ave Extension, a big fruit store there. Then he opened one in Oxford, down near where the Islands, Big Eye is, restaurant. Right there, he had a fruit stand there.
Oh my. The Guadalcanal.
Yeah. He did well. He did well. But like I say, he had the toughest life. Well, he kept getting malaria, and he disliked the Quincy Naval Hospital so bad. He had a disability, I think 10% for his head wound, but he would not go for any other compensation. He deserved 100% with his problems, because he couldn't do any manual labor, you know. But he would not. He hated it so much he would never go. I tried to get him to go. He wouldn't go. In fact, I never went. I never went to the VA until after I was in the air for 9/11. Almost 60 years. Almost 60 years from my discharge before I went for help.
Now, would you like to share that story? That's an incredible story of your 9/11
Well,
experience.
we had reunions that started, maybe 20, 30 years ago. And we had every year at a different place. We had been to Chicago first, then we went to Branson, Missouri, we went to Quantico, went to Las Vegas twice, Branson 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
And we were supposed to go to Texas, Paris, Texas. We had all our money sent in, plus airfare. She got a gallbladder attack. So we had to cancel everything. We got all our money back from the reunion, but the airfare, they would not reimburse the airfare. But we could use it within a year.
Right, yep.
So
9/11.
at 9/11, we were in the air going to meet my buddy in New Orleans. My buddy from Texas was going to meet us in Biloxi, New Orleans. We were going to go to Biloxi, Mississippi, to the casino. So we left
Connecticut.
Bradley Airfield in Connecticut. We didn't go out of Boston, thank God. We left Bradley, and we were airborne maybe an hour, and all of a sudden I heard the engine change pitch. I felt it. Because from my flying experience, I knew the difference. I told Louise, something is wrong. I said, we're slowing down. So we didn't know it. We did. We landed in Pittsburgh. We were one of 50 planes that day that landed. Nobody told us anything while we were on the plane.
They told you the plane was landing, though.
No, they didn't even tell us that. They seat belts and they went down.
Whoa. That must have been terrifying for you, because you knew what going down was.
I knew. I said, something is wrong.
Yeah.
Something is wrong. We shouldn't be landing here. We were 70-something miles away from plane 93 that crashed. But when we got into the terminal, there was nobody but the representatives from the airlines handing out cards. When you finish, send us your receipts. So we were going to meet my buddy in Motel 6 down in Biloxi, in New Orleans. So one of the guys loaned me his phone. I said, somebody loaned me a phone. The only one I could call was my daughter-in-law at the time. She worked at Holy Cross. My other kids, I couldn't get them. So I had Cheryl's number, and I called her. I says, we're in Pittsburgh. I don't know what's going on. She says, they hit the towers, Dad. I says, really? Yeah, that was the first inclination. I said, well, we're safe. We're in Pittsburgh. Tell the kids we're all right. We'll get a terminal and get this, and then we had to go stay. We waited an hour to get a cab. We finally got a cab, and I says, I see the sign there, Motel 6. I was going to Motel 6. Let's go to Motel 6. Biggest mistake we ever made. It was halfway from between the airport and Pittsburgh. And it was on a hill, and she had asthma very badly. So she couldn't make the walk up and down that hill only once a day. So we were restricted. I'd go down and get our breakfast for us, and we'd just go down for one meal, one big meal. And 3 days climbing the walls. I was actually climbing the walls. So she was ready. Some guy pulled in with a tractor trailer. She was going to go over and ask him if he was headed. I tried everything
To get home.
to get home. I tried to get a car, which was impossible. I wanted to see if there was any train that went to Albany, because nothing could go through New York. New York was closed. And I tried to get a bus to take me to even Chicago. Nothing. So for 3 days I was climbing the walls. Finally, on the third day, phone rang. It was the car company that had a car for me at the airport. So I called the cab right away. We had to wait 3 hours. I didn't care. I wanted to get out of that motel. Called the cab within 10 minutes. We were on the way to the airport. We got there, and I met this young fellow that handed me his phone to use. You remember me? He said, "You got a car?" I says, "Yeah." He says, "Can I go home?" But yes, by all means. He says, "We'll split the fare." I says, "Fine. Don't worry about it." So he says, I said, I can't get the car until 1 o'clock. He says, "Okay." So he says, "Watch my bag." He was a golfer. He was in a minor league. Not the big one, but he was in a minor traveling league. He's watched my bag. I said, "Sure." He comes back 10 minutes later with a key. He said, "I got a car." "You got a car?" I went to the desk and said, "Cancel my car. I got a ride." So between the both of us, we drove home.
Yeah, it's perfect.
That was the longest ride in the world from Pittsburgh to here. Or to Bradley.
Yeah.
My son was ready to come out
Come and
himself.
get you.
Yep.
Yep. But that miraculously somehow kicked on your PTSD
Yes, it did.
feeling.
It did. And
Just
I got home. I still wasn't going to do nothing.
Mm.
So I met this friend of mine. We were in a restaurant somewhere. And he says, "Joe, you got to go to the VA." I said, "I've never been to the VA." So he told me, it's on Lake Street. So I went to the VA and I got this primary care, this Donna Scavone, whose family I knew. Her mother was a Favoli, and I knew Mike Favoli and his brothers. I knew the whole family. And she says, "I want you to go next door to the Veterans Affairs," after I spoke to him for a while. So within a year and a half, I got the nicest guy, Tom Boyle, as a counselor. Within a year and a half, he got me 100% disability.
for the PTSD.
Well, it was 10% hearing, 70% PTSD, 20% unemployability to bring me to 100%. But it was through that nicest guy, Tom Boyle.
Yep.
But it was the Veterans Affairs that did it for me.
Yeah, figured that out.
Like I say, almost 60 years I never went to the VA.
Yeah.
Now I get all my medication from them.
Yeah.
And I go there. I see her every 6 months.
And you said you would have some reactions to the war off and on earlier, but you wouldn't really understand what was happening.
I wouldn't compare them. There was no comparison. You know, I had no idea it was from the war. I got violent a couple of times when I was driving cab. A couple of guys got me upset, and I got real violent with them. And that wasn't my nature. I never fought.
No.
But it did. And a couple of times after I'd leave her, I end up somewhere I wouldn't know while we were recording.
It was like a blackout.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. But I never gave it a thought.
Yeah.
I survived it until 9/11.
Yeah. Now, when you all came back, I mean, it sounds like almost everybody you knew went into the service.
All of my friends.
And
All of my friends.
when everybody came back to Worcester, came home, did you share experiences with each other? Could you tell some guys were really upset?
No. I met all my buddies. One of my friends who actually had PTSD married his friend of ours. In fact, I introduced him to his wife. They went on a honeymoon to come home, and she left him.
Whoa.
And unbeknownst to him, she was pregnant from the honeymoon, and he didn't know it. To this day, whether he's still living or not, he moved to California. He had a son he didn't know about. Spitting image of his father.
Oh my goodness.
We look at him as, God, I don't think you remember Misha Auer many years ago. He was the homeliest actor, you know. But that was Pete, he looked like Misha Auer. And his son was a spit image of him. We finally met him at his grandmother's funeral.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how did you know he had PTSD?
Or he was always off the
Just
wall.
off the wall.
Yeah.
When you say off the wall.
He was violent. And that wasn't his nature before.
Yeah.
It wasn't his nature before.
So you could tell he came back changed.
Yes, yes.
Would
He was
you
a
talk
rifleman.
about that with your friends or
No,
your brother
no,
or just?
No.
I tried to get my brother to go to the VA. He would not. Didn't want anything to do with it. He had malaria attacks, and he stayed home and suffered with it rather than go to the Naval Hospital,
Right.
which is in Quincy.
Now, where was he before Guadalcanal? That he would have gotten the malaria?
Australia.
Australia. Oh, yikes.
Yeah, the 1st Division went to Australia before the invasion of Guadalcanal.
Australia.
He spoke of Australia quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a couple of days on Guadalcanal was all it took for him to get malaria.
Huh.
But he had those violent attacks. Well, they were horrific. But he would not go to the hospital.
Huh.
But like I say, we have quite a group of guys. Only one guy, one of my in fact, my friend that saved that piece about in the newspaper. He's the one that saved that piece, and I didn't. I got that. That's what got me the helped get me my disability. Louis had perforated eardrum. He was 4F. That designation meant you couldn't go into service during World War II.
Interesting.
He was 4F, the only one. All the rest of us went into service. There was 1, 2, 3, 4 of us went in Marine Corps. Frankie, Tut, went in the Army. Leo went in the Navy. And my cousin Vinny went in the Coast Guard. Well, we all went in service. All of us went in service. 90% of my high school class went in service.
90%.
90%.
High school class.
In fact, one guy, a very good friend of mine, went to college, and he graduated in 45 in time. He got out, he graduated before the war was over, so he got credit for being in World War II. He went to Holy Cross and graduated for Tom Hickey. Graduated, he came out as ensign. It's a big deal.
Now, did you know anybody that didn't want to enlist and
No, it
would
was,
be
everybody wanted to go.
akin to a conscientious?
Everybody was gung ho to go.
Yeah.
The only reason they wouldn't let me go is because my 2 brothers went before me.
When you say that, you mean your parents?
My parents, my mother.
So she could have signed you into the Marine Corps
Yes.
at 17.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't.
No, I was 18 then.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't let me, they didn't want me to sign up.
Right.
And my family didn't want me to, the rest of them. My brother says, you stay home.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
But come October, my mother says, all right, you can go, Joe. Everybody was going then.
Yeah.
So October 10th, I left for boot camp.
Yeah.
And I get out October 19, 1945, 3 years and 10 days, 9 days. And I didn't know anything about those citations, because when we come out with points. When you got discharged.
Yeah.
It was X amounts of years in the service, X amounts of years overseas.
Did you get X points for your number of flights?
No,
Missions?
I didn't know this, but the skipper in the meantime had sent our names in for the medals, and we'd known that. Each medal was 5 points. I didn't come out with the first group, but I came out with the 4th group, which is no big deal. I didn't care. I was happy to get out there. I was down at Cherry Point doing nothing.
So when you left the Pacific, you went to Cherry Point?
Right. When we
On
got
a train or
when
did you fly?
When we got home, we landed in Frisco. they asked, what do you want in your next base? I applied for El Toro, California. But they sent me to Cherry Point. Everybody that was from the West Coast applied for for Cherry Point. They got the West Coast. They sent you where you wanted to go. But anyway,
On a train
we didn't.
to Cherry
Oh yeah, all
Point?
trains.
All
no,
trains.
no plane. Yeah. In fact, there's a picture up here
Uh-huh.
on the plane, and it says "Back Alive in '45."
Oh.
That was in Reno. We landed in Reno. I handed the guy, the sandwich guy, I handed him a $20 bill. He gave me 19 silver dollars for change. So I threw it in my sea bag. When I got home, I emptied my sea bag and all the silver dollars.
Knock on the door. You want to get the door?
Right.
Yeah, let me turn this on, because we're talking about your brother and never having shared any of your Marine Corps experiences together, and you were going to say something about him.
You know, one amazing thing about him, when he got wounded, it was a head wound, and a head wound bleeds a lot. So when he left Guadalcanal, everybody thought he was dead. His friends thought he was dead. And lo and behold, maybe 20 years later, they had a reunion, the 1st Marine Division had a reunion in Washington. He walked in and he almost shocked the rest, all of them. They were happy to see him.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Abby, we thought you died. Because they never heard any more than
That's right. And
Yeah,
so
get
many
home.
after that did die. that,
Right,
Of course,
right.
it made sense he would have. Oh, my.
But
Wow.
no, we
Now,
never-
did you know he was going to be okay when you got that letter from your mother, or was
No.
that
No.
took a while to know he'd
no,
be all right?
I didn't find out till maybe a couple months later that he was in the Oakland Naval Hospital.
Oh.
Because I went from when I first heard I was at Cherry Point, I think. Then I went through school in Newport, and that was 4 months. Then I went to Chicago, so when I was in Chicago is when he was on his way to Quincy Navy
Yeah,
Shipyard,
right.
Naval Hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and that's when we met, and he was fine. He was fine.
Whoa. And did he have the plate in his head then? Did
Yes,
that happen
yes,
right away?
Yes, yes, yes.
He had a rough life.
And all he got out of that was 10% disability.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty amazing when you think about it.
We see, no, they
Disability.
never allowed
level.
for the malaria, or that hit. That they would be years after.
Did you, I would assume, when you were in boot camp, you got that news about your brother, lots of the other Marines would have had brothers in other places.
Oh yes.
So was that a part of what life was like during your training in boot camp, that with some frequency your friends would get letters from home that
Oh,
their
yeah.
brothers were
wounded or
wounded
killed.
or killed?
Yes. We all got reports home. Because like I say, I was in that was October when I went in, so it was later on in the war, and they had already had the invasion of the Guadalcanal.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. And would there be people, friends that you would talk to about your feelings about
No,
that, or
no,
nobody?
No.
Did any of the Marine Corps
No,
officials,
you never. I
the
didn't even
priests
advertise
or
it.
chaplains or anybody
No,
follow
I-
up on any of that for
Didn't
you
go with
guys?
it.
He never used to even talk about
No,
it.
Yeah.
I never spoke about it.
Wow.
But he was my hero.
Mm.
He was my hero. In fact, when I remember we went down to the casino, pushing him around in that wheelchair, and he was big. And I said, God, he's not heavy, but he's my brother.
Yes.
He was my hero.
Yeah. He was a brother in more ways than one
Yeah. Well,
with the Marine Corps.
not only that, he took care of me when I was younger.
Oh.
He let me have my first drive. He loaned me the first car.
Really?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Ah.
No, he let me have the first ride in the car, loaned me a car. He was my hero. And like I say, when after he passed, Mabel wanted to give me the mementos, I said, I don't deserve them. There's only one guy deserved them, that was him.
He must have been pretty proud of you, though, following him into the Marine Corps, and
He was a nice guy.
when he saw the size of that
everybody
plane
liked
you were
Abby.
in.
Everybody liked Abby.
Yeah. So he must have taken after your mother.
Yes.
You
Oh,
said your
yes.
dad wasn't the.
No, my
Yes,
dad was
there
out of
was.
the picture.
Your mom was a pretty strong
In
lady.
fact, I was in a hospital when I was 37 years old. I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage attack. I ended up in City Hospital, and he was in there with his heart attack. My father. And we visited
In the hospital.
in the hospital, and then he left. Now he was at this time. He remarried
Oh.
a younger Lebanese girl,
Mm-hmm.
and he got out of the hospital. A week later, he died. And by that time, I got out of the hospital, just in time to make the funeral.
Oh my gosh.
So we got to the funeral, and I never left the car at the cemetery. I wasn't strong enough. So I was getting over there. Subarachnoid hemorrhage I had. But it was sad. But we weren't depressed because he had left our mother. And my brothers fought with him more than once because he would attack my mother.
Uh-huh.
But my brothers stepped in the way.
Oh my
Johnny
gosh.
especially,
Oh my gosh.
my oldest brother.
Wow.
But it was a rocky marriage. That's why I was born in Utica.
Yeah, that's what you said. You thought something had happened and
Yes,
she went home
yes,
to her parents.
yeah.
Now, how old were you guys when your dad left? When did your mother take over running that family?
Oh, she ran that family from when I was in grammar school. She was alone. He never gave her any money.
Did she work?
No,
Oh my gosh.
no. My brothers worked and my sister worked and they supported the house.
Oh my.
And when I went to work, I supported,
Sure.
paid, supported her. And we all gave her, when we were in the service, we all sent her portions of our pay. Matter of fact, the day I got home, and I wasn't one for communications. I never wrote letters.
Oh, you didn't?
No, no. And the day I reached Frisco, we were allowed to make phone calls. You go give your name to an operator, you give the number, and they get the number, they call you back. And they call your number and call you. And I called home and finally called me and my mother picked up the phone. Where are you? I said, I'm in San Francisco. I'll be home within a week. She says, thank God. She had just come from church because we lived next door to the church. And she spent all her time in the church. She was a very religious person. But, and I was home within a week.
Now, we're back from our phone call.
Yeah, well,
we were talking about your mom and
yeah.
how she got you, she's on her own and
Oh, she was. She did all right.
financially and
Yeah.
emotionally and everything else.
As a matter of fact,
And
yeah.
her parents stayed in Utica. Did she have brothers
No,
and
her
sisters?
parents went back to Lebanon.
Oh my gosh. Whoa.
Yeah, and she
Not easy for her.
went back to Lebanon after they passed, and the land was hers.
Oh, your mother.
Yeah,
Really?
my uncle's passed, and she was the last survivor.
Oh heavens.
So she says, which one of you guys want the land over in Lebanon?
Whoa.
Nobody, Mom.
Yeah.
We asked her, who's living there now? She says, my cousin. Good. Give them the land. So she did. She,
Oh
went,
my.
she
Yeah.
sent them a letter and told them to make arrangements, get a lawyer,
Yeah.
send the papers over, and we'll sign them.
Oh my.
She did.
Yeah. Now, do you know where in Lebanon that was?
No, I have no
Where was
idea.
The family from?
I have no idea.
My goodness.
It was up in the hills somewhere.
Yeah.
She used to take the cab from Beirut up into the hills
Huh.
to go to her house.
Jeez. And you said you always thought you grew up thinking you were from Syria.
Well, yes,
And
we
then-
thought we were Syrian.
Yeah.
And this Irish priest says, no, you're Lebanese, you're not Syrian.
Yeah. Did that change how you saw the world?
It did, because the Syrians were predominantly Protestant, Orthodox. Syrians were predominantly Orthodox, and we were the Catholics. I don't know if you know anything about Worcester, but
I'm learning.
well, Wall Street
You're teaching me.
area were predominantly Syrians. The El Morocco was one of the best restaurants in the city, Middle East restaurant, and they were Syrians. And that was up on Wall Street. That up on Grafton Hill, Wall Street was all the Syrians, and the Lebanese lived down on Shrewsbury Street and up on the other farther part of Grafton Street. My uncles lived, but they were spread out. But the most of the Syrians lived up on Wall Street and Hamilton Street in that area. And they had a club, Syrian Lebanese Club, on Plantation Street. Didn't even know the word Lebanese before.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it took an Irish priest to tell us
Tell you that. That's great.
we weren't Syrian.
That's right. And you said it was your grandparents who came over
My grandparents,
originally.
both grandparents,
Both sides. Yep.
both sides. My maternal grandparents went to Utica. My paternal grandparents went to Worcester.
Yeah.
And my grandmother ran the roost, my paternal grandmother.
Paternal.
She ran the roost. She owned the 4th tenement on East Worcester Street and the 6th tenement on East Worcester
Whoa.
Street.
Whoa.
And we lived in one of the 6 tenements,
Yeah.
5 rooms, 5 people.
How did they get the money to get those buildings? Do you know?
I have no idea. My grandmother was a sharp character.
Really?
Her sons, even after they were married, brought the pay home to her, and she doled it out.
Oh my goodness.
It's truth.
Really?
She was a toughie.
She'd smoke a cigar or the water pipe. She's a tough old broad.
Did your grandfather die first? Did
Yes,
her
he
husband
did.
die?
Yes, he did. He was the meek. He was the meek one.
He was the meek one.
Yeah, she ran the roost.
Interesting. How many kids did she have? How many brothers and sisters did your
I
father
had,
have?
let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 uncles
6 uncles.
and 1 aunt.
Oh my gosh. Huh.
You know, like I say, my Uncle Tony had 6 kids, 5 boys. My Uncle Joe had 5 boys.
Just 5 boys? Neither of them had girls?
And girls. you
And,
know,
and then some girls.
Yeah, and then some girls. I'm just talking
We can
about
count the
service.
girls, it's okay.
Yeah, my Uncle Johnny, my Uncle Billy. Like I said, there were 17 of us all went into service. World War II. We all came back.
And you all came back. It's pretty amazing. Yep. And your grandmother was alive to see you all come back.
Yes, oh yes.
That's fabulous.
She lived long after too.
Yeah.
Huh. Did she and your mother get along?
No,
After the divorce,
No.
that must not have been a good
no, I didn't get along even before the
Ah.
divorce.
Poor mom. Huh. Yep.
The will was read. He leaves his son Joseph for $1, son Albert $1, son John $1, Lauren Tom $1 each. I insisted I get that dollar. I want that damn dollar.
Yes. And then did you do something special with it?
No, I never got it.
You never got
It's just a figure of speech.
Oh.
He says, I said, no, it ain't. It says $1. I want that dollar.
Yeah.
I could put on a goddamn wall and throw rocks at it.
That's right. Oh.
And yet, after he passed, the only one that went and tended his grave was me. Louise and I. We're the only ones that tended his grave. Because,
He taught me how to drive.
oh yeah, my father
Oh, my.
took
In
off
the
a driver's
truck.
license. Father
with a
took off.
brand new baby.
Oh no, there's a picture.
Yeah, my father took her out for driving. My father and two of my friends took her out. I wouldn't take her.
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
probably
have-
safe.
I didn't have the temper to take her.
So are you, looking back, you glad that you chose the United States Marine Corps?
Yes, I am. I'd do it again.
You'd do it again,
I'd do it again.
as a gunner.
Yes. Loved it.
Love those
Loved
planes.
every minute of it. I love flying.
Yeah.
I could not stand sitting back and watching those guys go out
Sure.
every day.
Yeah.
It was boring.
Basically, he's the exact same today. He cannot just sit around.
No, I gotta be
Action.
active. Gotta be active.
Yep.
I quit playing pitch Tuesday night league last spring because I couldn't see the cards.
Oh.
But Kelly
Everybody felt so
and Amber
bad.
got me those new playing cards. I don't know
Oh,
if you
she,
saw.
no, you had, I heard you mention them.
1 minute.
So, yeah, let me, I'll hit the little button again.